Episode 80, Creating Compassion and Understanding for Menopausal Changes with Candy Wright.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and certified through the Life Coach School. Together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with the coach? Here we go.
We probably created a life plan when we were young that included getting a higher education or advanced skill, acquiring a job, getting married, and having children. After those things were accomplished, it's rare many of us had a plan beyond that. But life does continue after we have children, and that includes a life with changing hormones, and for every woman, a journey through the stages of menopause. Coach Candy Wright is on a mission to help women go through these stages of menopause with more grace and understanding by normalizing this natural transition for women. The stages of menopause can be overwhelming and scary, but there is hope and a life on the other side of the menopausal journey. Your body was designed to go through this, and as Candy says, there can be so many yummy lessons our body can teach us if we are looking and willing to see them.
Well, folks, today I am joined by Coach Candy Wright, and I'm always sad. Well, actually, you guys can actually go and look at and watch these things that we do post these on YouTube now. Because I was going to say, I'm always sad that people can't see the coaches that I'm talking to because Candy's got on these fun red glasses, and you just want to sit down and have a conversation with her. And I'm lucky enough to get to do that today. But Candy, will you tell us a little bit about you, introduce yourself, and we'll go from there?
Yeah, you bet. This is so fun. Thanks for having me. I've been a coach for about 4 years. My heart really wanted to be a life coach maybe about 20 years ago, honestly. And so personally, kind of my own personal journey, how I got here, I struggled with anxiety and depression throughout my life and didn't realize that I also struggled with body image and also kind of a wonky, not healthy relationship with food over the years. So that's kind of how I got into coaching. I actually knew Jody Moore. We worked together in the corporate world way back in the day, and I found her and I followed her and I was like, oh, Jody figured out how to do it. And I've always wanted to do this. So I was like, yay. Anyway, I got married for the first time at age 43, which was about 8 years ago. And then we got foster kids, and both my husband and I stress ate our way through that. It was really, really challenging. We both gained 65 pounds, and it was after they went back with their mom and we both got healthier and the stress went down, etc., that I did life coach school coaching and whatnot, and really started to realize the different layers of the relationship that I had with food and my body. And it was never my intent to focus on this, but realize, holy cow, this has been my journey, right? So I would always turn to food when I was stressed or hurting and whatnot. And so what I learned through the years was that how to love your body, how to really speak to it and whatnot. And so that's what I do now. I specialize in helping women in late perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause, because what worked for my body before menopause is night and day different now. And so I'm about a year post-menopause. And I think one of the big things that I didn't realize was just how different that was going to be. I was really cocky before menopause. I'm not going to lie. Just really confident maybe is a better idea. Yeah. I know what I'm doing. And then all of a sudden, all the hormones change. And I was like, what is happening? So anyway, I am a life coach school grad, as well as a mind, body, eating psychology coach and a menopause doula. And so I help women really stop chronic dieting and create a really loving, peaceful relationship with their bodies as they go through these changes. And that has to do specifically with really changing their relationship to stress, their relationship to food, their relationship to what is going on with my body and all of the emotion that comes up with that. Because there's a lot of grief, there's a lot of overwhelm that comes up in that process. So anyway, that was a long explanation, but that's kind of.
No, I think it was fascinating. And you said something. I've heard of a doula before, but I've not heard of a menopause doula. Can you expand on that for me a little bit?
Yeah, you bet. So if you kind of think about it, a lot of us have heard about what doulas are. They help ladies go through the birthing process, the pregnancy process and whatnot. A doula is really just someone who is a support to someone going through a physical and a mental and emotional life change. Okay. And so they are now creating like menses doulas. Like if you think about back in the day, we just maybe got a little talk from our mom about our periods, right? Mm-hmm. There's quite a bit more information about like how to get through a pregnancy and whatnot afterwards. We don't talk about all of the phases of what it's like to be a woman on the planet, though. And menopause is a part of the natural process. And a menopause doula is someone who helps women understand, A, what's going on, B, you're not crazy, and C, this is actually natural and it's totally okay. And there are ways to really create a loving relationship going through it. Because most of our Western culture is all about, getting through things, being strong, really being productive, etc. But when those hormones start to drop, it doesn't work anymore. And so there's a new paradigm that we really have to start looking at and be like, whoa, what's going on with my body? And our body is so wise. It makes us take a look at it, right? So that's kind of what a doula does. It just helps you go through that process, really understanding what's going on.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. And I think that's so interesting and so valuable. I was talking with Candy before we started recording, and I said, I think one of my first questions to Heavenly Father is going to be why? Why are we blessed to have to experience these emotional, hormonal ups and downs our whole lives? And what did you tell me, Candy?
I said he's probably going to give you a look of lots of love and kind of look down just a little bit and be like, you know why? It's because I love you. It's because everything's for your highest good, And
I'm still going to be like, yeah, I still cannot connect the dots between my highest good and this. So hopefully
that's actually something that's really fun about being a menopause doula and really understanding this is that there are emotional, mental, spiritual, soul lessons that we learn from our bodies. And I think, we're teasing about this now, but it's part of the process. It's part of our evolution to learn those different layers of lessons through this process.
Well, clearly I really need this conversation today.
I had this too. I get it, sister.
I really value that perspective and I guess I've not really heard anybody ever say it that way before, that there are reasons, many reasons, not just the physical, so that we can have babies and, because I'm always like, can we just flip the switch? We're done having babies. Let's just flip the switch and be done with all the things. Mm-hmm. But I guess I can get on board if I was able to understand a little bit more of the other pros to it.
Yeah, 100%. And I totally get that. I felt the same way. Like I didn't have biological children. I had foster kids and about 1,000 different students when I taught school back in the day. But as I got into my later 40s, I was just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I never had babies. And even, women who have had babies. And I'm like, seriously, this isn't going anywhere. And I was mad. And so this is also kind of what I'm talking about. We go through different ups and downs of the emotions. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of grief. Sometimes there's a lot of resentment. There's like, are you serious? Right?
Yeah.
Get it. And all of this is valid. It's all something that we can learn from. That's my opinion.
Well, there has to be, right? We have to believe that. Otherwise, like I said, it's just one big giant frustration. So
bloody frustration.
Yes. Okay. So I would love for you to describe the difference between, and you said this earlier, that you work with perimenopausal, menopausal, and postmenopausal, and you don't work with all of those. You had a specific range in there that you said that you work with.
Yeah, I work with late perimenopausal women.
Okay.
This is people in their very late 40s usually. Mm-hmm. And because the median or the average age of menopause is about 51.4, at least in the Western world in the States. So that's the type of people, that's the range that I work with. So
Okay.
did you want me to explain?
Yeah, I would love for you to explain those three different areas, right? Perimenopausal, menopausal, and postmenopausal.
Yeah. And thanks for the clarification, because it is important, because most women go into perimenopause in their late 30s. And that'll be usually the time that women start noticing, oh, I can't diet and exercise like I used to and keep the pounds off. That's usually like one of the first things for a good majority of people. Not everybody experiences that. It's usually connected to how much stress is also in your life, to the way that the body stores fat. But you'll notice sometimes some of the symptoms that happen in perimenopause are migraines. Now, some people may have had migraines earlier in life. I've spoken with women, and then they went away in perimenopause. So the beautiful thing that I want everybody to understand is it is not one size fits all at all. And as you're getting support, if you do run across anyone that says, okay, this is the one thing that's going to fix it, you want to say, actually, maybe that's not the case, because everybody is very, very different. But generally speaking, as you head into perimenopause, sleep issues will start to arise. Lots of different things like anxiety and depression. These were two, because I had a propensity for it earlier in my life, but I didn't realize. But when I hit 41, like that's when I started to go into some of my intense perimenopause. I got migraines and intense anxiety about everything in my life, and some depression around it too. And it was chemical, very, very chemical. I had some stressors, I did, but I didn't realize that when that estrogen starts to drop and the progesterone starts to drop, that progesterone acts as an emotional buffer for the nervous system, for your body. And when those start to drop, it's your whole system rewiring. And so for a lot of women, they get put on anti-anxiety meds, and that's okay. If that's something that you need, it's totally understandable. And just bring this understanding and mindset and compassionate mindset of, whoa, if my anxiety is kind of going up, yeah, it's usually because my nervous system is stressed out and because my hormones are dropping, right? So some other things can be brain fog, food allergies, and some skin problems and mood swings, and weight gain and weight loss in the perimenopause phase. And it can be like, what's going on? Kind of what's going on. In later perimenopause, you're going to start possibly having heavier or lighter periods. And that's the thing. Everybody's going to be different, heavier or lighter periods. A lot of women get heavier. Not everybody does, though. But there will come a time when they start getting lighter and spotting or very erratic. As it's like, okay, the ovaries are about done with their job, the eggs are almost done, so I think we're, and so what happened for me, and this is different for everybody, is my period started to get to the point where it was like 31 days and then 25 days and then 17 days. I'm like, we're done. We're done. And I personally got an ablation, which is essentially lasering the uterus so that would stop, because of like what I'd been feeling. I'd been feeling like, are you kidding? I didn't have kids. I'm not putting up with this anymore. I'm not going to have kids. That was just my journey. Right. But some of my best friends have had them, and they're like, my bleeding is so heavy. I can't go out of the house. So that's, they would have to change their tampons and their pads like every hour or so. One of my best friends was like that. So she got an ablation. I'm not here to purport ablations. I'm here to just say that's something that I chose because of where I was at. It's an option. It doesn't take periods away. But anyway, that's kind of perimenopause. Okay. So my body went into medical menopause about 3 years ago, meaning I didn't have periods anymore, but it didn't go into hormonal menopause.
Oh, it's interesting to hear you clarify a difference there.
Yeah, because medical menopause is often, you can get an ablation and it'll take it away. Medical menopause is when you have a hysterectomy. When you have an oophorectomy, which is the uterus and the ovaries, then you go into all of it, because you just take out the hormones and you take out the uterus. So you go into medical and hormonal menopause like overnight, and it's a gargantuous stress to the system. Yeah. It's a huge stress. And I think one of the most helpful things that I wish I would have known, that I would love to give any listener, and this is for husbands too, this is for partners, this is for kids, like understanding their moms as well as us understanding ourselves is the higher our stress levels, the more exacerbated these symptoms are going to be.
Okay, so everybody just stay chill so that mom can stay chill.
For real. And it's really about learning to choose a different understanding of your body, choose to understand your different relationship to stress, because I didn't explain menopausal and postmenopausal, but I'll get back to that. But the whole bottom line here is as the ovaries are ready to be done, which they have been creating your estrogen, your progesterone, and your testosterone, when they're like, okay, our job's done on this planet and we're about ready to be done, it's the job of the adrenal glands to start taking over a minimal amount of estrogen and progesterone and testosterone production. But if those adrenals are already handling so much cortisol because of our stress levels, it's like those adrenals say, girlfriend, what you doing? We're already handling the cortisol. We don't have any space or energy for that. And so this is one of the huge reasons our fatigue will kick in. A lot of us will burn out if we're doing a lot of things. And if we have a mindset of, I've got to be productive, it will drive that a lot. That's what happened to me. It happens to a lot of ladies that I know. So really changing your relationship to mindset around what productivity looks like and stress looks like will have a huge effect here. But kind of going back to like the stages, that's perimenopause. Menopause is the 1 day to the year after your last period. That's what menopause is. It's just 1 day. And then you're in postmenopause for the rest of your life. So some of the differences that you'll notice, I mean, other than you don't have any more periods when you're actually in menopause and postmenopause, is sometimes the stressing symptoms will just get more exacerbated. Most women will wake up around 3 o'clock in the morning. Hands down, it's around 3 o'clock in the morning because the stress system and because everything is changing, everything gets more sensitive. If you just think about the body just feeling overstressed, because it is a stress on the body, although it's natural, everything just gets more sensitive. When that cortisol is high, it raises your insulin, and we get much more sensitive to sugar and flour and processed foods. So this is one of the many reasons why we gain weight.
And this is postmenopausal, or is this
throughout the whole process?
Throughout the whole process. Okay.
Yep. As soon as those
I'm sitting here going 3 o'clock in the morning wake up's already been happening to me for many years.
Yep. And so that is one thing that I do recommend people do, is just really prioritize sleep. Check out and see what your stress levels are throughout the day. Do good sleep hygiene. Make sure you're not eating chocolate late at night, that type of a thing. Those are some of the things for that. But some of the things that can happen are like in menopause and then postmenopause, digestive issues. Everything gets more sensitive. And this is what I like to call it. I call it Dr. It. When the stress levels are high, your digestive system says, hey, we're in fight or flight, we're in survival mode. So we can't extract as many nutrients from it. So our digestion might have a problem. Our reproductive system, our digestive, reproductive, immune, and thyroid systems, they all get a hit, because when the nervous system and when the body is kind of in that fight, flight, that stress mode with the dropping of the hormones, but just in general, it's like, they can't really do their job. And so we will have things like libido issues, sometimes an increased sex drive, sometimes a complete absence. And there's a lot of grief and emotion around that in relationship as well. And then sensitivities, this one kind of blew me away, like sight, smell, touch. We get sensitive that way. Like I can't listen to my sweet husband chew anymore. We have to watch TV or listen to music while we eat together, because if he chews next to me, and that wasn't the case when we first got married. I'm like, I didn't hear it. But I'm in many like support groups for menopause women, and we post about it all the time. I'm like, I know, and there's like hundreds of women like, I can't listen to him chew anymore. It's the craziest thing. But bringing compassion to, oh, wow, this is some really interesting changes in my body. And I am the observer. I am the caretaker. I'm learning to be the caretaker here, right? So, and when we're in postmenopause, We usually have vision that kind of goes downhill, heart problems, vaginal dryness, vaginal atrophy, because the estrogen is gone that kept the canal nice and lubricated, and that can be a huge piece. Incontinence, fatigue is usually a huge one for a lot of ladies. And then just the mental kind of things throughout this whole process. You're like, I used to feel confident, or I used to feel like I could think straight. I used to feel differently. Why is it changing? So there's a lot: mental, emotional, spiritual stuff, if you think about like quote unquote symptoms in each of the phases.
Mm-hmm. I think this is so good to know, because without knowing these things, it almost puts you into a tailspin of there's something wrong with me. And then that leads to frustration and shame even. And if you are able to just label it, it seems to take that away. I mean, it becomes purposeful, I guess, or at least makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, 100%. And I think this is just, I want to touch on this here. Understanding is so much of the key here. What I did as somebody who's been trained in the model was I started to use the model against myself. And this is a big place where I think we can do that when we have all these changes in our body and then emotions that kind of come with it. There was no way that I could, like, quote unquote, coach myself out of the anxiety that was happening. It was chemical. There was no way that I could coach myself out when I didn't know what was going on, because the nervous system was already so stressed and I couldn't think straight. And it wasn't until I really started to learn about what was going on in my body that my mindset could shift and be like, whoa, no, I don't need to have all this shame. No, I could release that and be like, wow, my sweet body is doing the best that it can. And it's going through a really big process. And so if we talk about mindset, I think that would be the gift of shift that I would give everybody. Like, this is a big deal. I'm in a menopause group, and they are doing brain scans on pre and postmenopausal women. And there is a gargantuous change in the brain scans, like a 30% decrease in brain energy capacity through this process. So it's not nothing. It's not all in your head, right? Even though I am talking about the brain, right? So it's really fascinating, really, really fascinating.
I am like breathing a little internal sigh of relief right now for myself, because I think these are things that, I mean, I know that a lot of the symptoms that you're describing are big frustrations that I've been experiencing in my life. And a lot of them I've been like, oh, it must have been COVID, because I was just fine before then. And I had COVID like maybe a year and a half ago. And I feel like that brain fog has never left, and so many other things, but it could be a combination of all the things too, which
it probably is.
Yeah. Which does enter actually a little bit more compassion. I'm able to see that a little bit, even just in this 5 minutes that you've been explaining this. I am curious though, is there, like you said, like the brain scans are showing a 30% difference, you said, up to, and
like reduction in brain energy.
Okay. Is there anything that we can do to help that or to compensate for that?
100%. It goes back to the stress. It goes back to really understanding. So starting with the mindset of my body's changing and I'm learning to become a compassionate caretaker. Like, that's some of the mindset that I always invite my clients to try on. I'm becoming a compassionate caretaker of what's going on here. And it's really about, for a good majority of us, it's really about taking things off our plate. It's really about really getting really defined with our boundaries and saying no, 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 and no. For me, I've had some extensive experience in trainings and certifications and understanding men and women's brains, and then healing between the two. And we often kind of joke and giggle about, oh, men go through this midlife crisis. Women and men go through a midlife transition as our hormones change, as we start to come up against our mortality. And so as you ask, are there things that we can do to help this? It starts there. It starts there with understanding this is a normal, natural transition. And my body is telling me, actually trying to tell me what I need. And it's usually slow down, get your sleep. Please stop eating sugar and flour and processed foods because we can't digest them anymore. We can't handle them anymore. Please get your water. Please do some meditation and or yoga, purposeful, like calming of the nervous system. And then in my book, I do some in-depth emotional healing work with my clients. And so there is usually years of some type of emotional thing that's been running in the background, some type of emotional trauma response that's been running in the background that will often exacerbate during this time too. And so really just managing and healing that as well is really, really simple. There are some supplements out there, and it's going to be something that is going to be different for everybody. I'm not going to sit here and talk about supplements though. I have tried everything in the book, to be honest. And one funny thing is, as I talk with menopausal women, I don't know if you're already there yet, but as I talk about women in this process, we're like, yeah, so how many vitamins and supplements do you have on your bathroom counter? Like a box this big. And I have a box that big. I've tried everything.
Oh, to be honest, I was just wanting you to say, yes, just start taking this and it will help with all of those things. Right.
Yep.
And then you start to describe all those things. And I'm like, oh yeah, like, yes, that just it makes sense that would be the way to help it. But our brains, it's so funny to notice, just want the quick fix. Just tell me the one thing I can start doing that will make it better.
And you know what? If I were to share like one of the most important, like spiritual lessons we're talking on, bringing it back to your beautiful question of being like, okay, Heavenly Father, what's going on, right? Bringing it back to one of the most important spiritual lessons that I see a lot of women, including myself, is learning that it's not about quick fix. Quick fix is actually a nervous system survival response. Quick fix is, okay, let's get this done. And that's not about what our evolution is about. Our evolution is about, okay, I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm learning to love more. I'm learning to love my body more, this temple more. I'm learning to love myself more. I'm learning to love just in general more. And it's really kind of coming out of that quick fix survival response that we kind of are raised on and conditioned on in Western society. And really bringing some compassion to, what's the next lesson?
Because it is about the long game.
Exactly.
I spent my whole weekend at baseball games, so my mind does think in terms of the game. But it is about the long game, and we want it to just be about that quick fix, but really those lessons and being who we are intended to be and the person that we are inside is a process.
Yeah. And if we're seeking quick fixes, we're seeking things outside of ourselves and not really turning in and turning up.
Yeah, so true. All right. So I need you to tell me a little bit more about how we can see this as a gift. Tell me all the things that I am benefiting from or I'm going to benefit from.
Oh, hun, that's such a good question. First of all, I would start off with one little kind of fact. About 20% of women go through this phase without too much of a hiccup. About 60% of us kind of go through it like bump, 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 bump. And about 20% of us go through it like we've been hit by a Mack truck. And so it's my opinion that the body is always doing its best to try and protect us. So one of the things, as you kind of talk about, okay, what are the benefits of this? Why do we have to go through it? One of the beautiful things, just like scientifically, is in those same brain scans, it does show, and our brains are very plastic, that after about depends on the woman, 5-year-ish period, the brain adjusts and it becomes plastic. And we do lose some brain fog in it, and we start feeling better. One of the beautiful, beautiful things to kind of speak to your question here that I have heard and that I'm starting to feel personally is this huge release of expectations about pleasing people, As estrogen goes down, our people pleasing response often goes down.
Linked to estrogen? That's so interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's one of the hormones that has us be making sure that we're fitting in our tribe. Progesterone and estrogen, part of their job is to help women survive in a tribe because we're a species, a tribal species, right? Okay. And so most of us report like not caring what people think anymore, getting an extra boost of confidence, like, I'm in charge of this now,
Yes.
And it's really kind of cool. It's really fun. I've been pretty confident all my life, but there is a different dimension of it that's starting to happen. And I talk with a lot of older women in this process to like help me feel, to have helped me feel better through it. And all of them say, oh yeah, hon, I get it. It will get better. I promise you. And you're going to come out of it and you're going to feel calm and you're going to feel confident and you're not going to be worried about like some of these old things. And you're just going to be like, hey, yeah, this is who I'm owning who I am in a new way. And so that's kind of how I link it back to like that evolution that we were talking about, owning who you are in a new way and being that next version of the amazing evolution that is who you are biochemically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically.
Okay. You're giving me some reasons here. You're giving me some.
All right. I might be up for this. The funny thing, obviously, is that we don't have a choice, but
oh, we don't, but it sure is nice to go into something with a vision or an anchor, a grounding spot, rather than, I don't know why any of this is happening or what good might benefit from it. It makes a difference in how we approach something.
Absolutely. I wish these are the kind of the things that I wish I had known. And
yeah, why don't we know them? Why is this such a secret?
We don't have conversations about them. The generations before us have not had conversations about them. And that's one of the things that I really recommend people do. As I was talking to my mother about this and saying, Mom, I'm having such a hard time. My moods are up and down and I'm just all over the place. And there are a lot of women that get, suicidal ideations in this time period too, because everything is just so all over the place. And she's like, oh my gosh, you're right. We haven't talked about this. We don't talk about this. And she and I started talking about it. Mm-hmm. And it's a conversation that actually us Gen Xers are starting to have. There's a huge push in the social media community and with doctors, a lot of them in the UK. There's a lot of legislation happening in the UK to support women in menopause. We need to catch up over here in America, is my opinion. But it hasn't been in the culture. It's just like, you just get through it. If somebody, if you try to talk to somebody about it, like, oh yeah, you just suck it up, buttercup, it's kind of that type of thing that was just cultural, Yeah. We just don't think we do tell our girls, okay, you're going to have a period. Sometimes we might have a great conversation. Like you might have like mood swings. I didn't get that. And I had horrible mood swings. I had no idea what's going on for like 15 years, with my mood swings. But it's just about opening up the conversation and not being ashamed of it. Like I own my menopause, like no get out. And I just say, hey, this might make you feel uncomfortable, but there's like a 17-year-old nephew in the room or somebody else's 70-year-old nephew and their husbands. I'm like, I'm in menopause. I'm in postmenopause. And this has been really hard. And I just talk about it. I own it. And it's like little by little, I personally, it's kind of a mission that I'm on. It's a mission that I'm on. Like, let this be okay and safe. Let this be okay and safe, because it just adds more suffering on top of it, right?
Yeah, normalizing the conversation, which is so as we're talking about this, something that I have tried to do with so many different things in my family with my kids, like let's normalize the conversations around sex. Let's normalize conversations around pornography. Let's normalize a conversation around, all the different things. And this is one more thing that we need to be able to normalize the conversation around.
Yeah, 100%.
So good. Well, thank you for helping me to see the normality in it myself, because I really feel like I have a lack of education and I really appreciate it. So, all right. I do. And you have given me a lot of hope, but I'm wondering, what is the hope for women on the other side of this? What would you leave us with there as far as it goes?
Well, I can tell you this, just personally, all the ladies that I've interviewed that are older than me, they all say, yes, it's hard and you're going to get out on the other side. Yes, you're going to be okay. And it's going to get better. I promise. All of them say that. I have not interviewed one woman that's like, oh girl, you're going to suffer for the rest of your life. There is a time when you're going to feel better. And I think another piece, like the hope here personally, like I was one of those 20% where I got hit by a Mack truck. Energy was in the crapper. I couldn't move. I couldn't do so many things. Like my mind, I did have suicidal ideation several different times. And it was really hard. I am starting to come out of it. I have chosen to do hormone therapy because of the severity of my skills. Not every woman needs to do that. There are lots of different resources. And I think the hope really is I have learned, I'm just going to speak personally, and I do hear some of this from other ladies, but I have learned to become such a loving, compassionate partner with my body like I never have been able to before. I liked my body before, but we are buds now. And we have the most loving conversations. And for me, that has been one of the most healing things, is having those loving conversations with my body, with my soul. And I don't feel that same way. I'm starting to come out of it. So the things that the ladies told me, I'm like, okay, all right. I'm starting to feel it. I'm like, oh, some days it's holding on, with my tight grip or whatever. But just there can be so many yummy lessons if we're always looking for my body's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. And what's the lesson here?
I think you bring up a really good point, and something that's really interesting to think about is the relationship we have with our bodies. And most of us have a pretty unhealthy relationship, I would say, with our bodies. And there's a lot of shaming that goes on there, and a lot of disappointment, and probably even regret. I don't know. There's just a lot. And probably most of it isn't productive. It's probably all very unproductive to creating a good relationship.
There are so many yummy books out there, but one of the books that I love is by Dr. Christiane Northrup. One of her tenets in that book is menopause is all about unfinished business. As a spiritual lesson. And I love that idea, because kind of going back to the beginning of this conversation, me having, there was some painful childhood memories, and then I started using food, and then I didn't realize that I was having this unhealthy relationship with food in my body for so many years. It feels like that unfinished business is now healed.
Okay. So that to me is like the hopeful piece that I like grasp onto.
Yeah.
So good.
It absolutely can be healed.
Candy, this has been a fantastic conversation, and obviously one that's been needed for me and probably for so many people, and one that we need to continue to have. So thank you so much for being candid and open and sharing your knowledge with us today.
You're so welcome. It's been my honor. Thank you.
I need you to tell people where they can find more of you.
You betcha. You can find me at candywright.com. I am on Instagram as Candy_Wright, WRIGHT_coaching. I also do have a free private Facebook group. I do have a business page called the Stress Eating Coach for menopausal women. But my private face group, I do trainings in there twice a month, as well as spot coaching. So I invite people to just come and get coached, and we dive down into the root causes of their relationship around the food and the menopause and the eating and whatnot. And that is called Holistic Peri and Menopause Weight Release Support for women over 50. But you can find all that on my website, and I think that's about it.
Awesome. Yes, we will link to all of those things in the show notes so people can find you. And gosh, thank you so much. I have loved it. It's been so fascinating for me.
You're so welcome. Thanks so much.
Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.